as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
obviously you need inspiration, and in life we need inspiration. Sometimes we just need inspiration to get out of bed in the morning. So who or what have been your biggest sources of inspiration?
I'm going to go for writing first.
Okay.
When I was in school, I was probably doing my GCSEs, so I was probably 10, 11. We did I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And she had, for anyone who doesn't know, she was brought up in the American Deep South, and it was African-American, kind of back end of the slave trade. There was still a lot of racism going on. And she wrote this incredibly personal, beautiful story with humour. And lots of terrible things have happened to her, but she wrote about it with humour and always saw the positive side. She went on and she's passed away now, unfortunately, but I did get to go and see her, and I've met her, and it was one of the best things. Again, I was probably like 14 or something at the time. That was one of the best things ever, got to go and meet her. But she wrote about tragic, awful things with humour, or with honesty, or both. And I found that really powerful. So when I was starting to write my memoir, I reread her books again, because I thought that's what I want. I want to keep a good perspective. I don't just want to slag people off. I want to try and, tell the story with a truthful voice. Also not hide anything, be very honest, but have moments of humour, and always bring out the positive, because I wouldn't change anything that's happened to me, because I wouldn't be this me if I'd not had all of the stuff I've had in the past. And I like this me. So I wanted to have the positive side of it. So she very much has been a massive influence. And then personally, this is going to sound funny, my parents have been a big influence. Sometimes making me want to be like them, lots of times making me not want to be like them. And they've kind of inspired me to be different, and inspired me to treat people differently than they had, or to treat myself differently than they had. So they both were very hard on themselves and very self-critical. Guess what? I've picked that up, and I'm learning, with a lot of help and a lot of time and a lot of love and patience, not to be like that with myself. So I've used them as I don't want to be like that.
Like reverse inspiration.
Reverse inspiration. But that sounds daft, but I thought I have to say that. But my dad definitely was inspirational, because he loved hugely. And he's never afraid to hug people. He used to cry in front of people and then apologise, because men don't cry, but obviously they do. But he was very open to his emotions and not afraid to show them, and that's something I very much want to be like, because I'm not, I cry at the drop of a hat, whether it's happy or sad, but I don't ever want to feel ashamed of that, because it's part of who I am, and that's just me. And Dad very much, as I say, loved people, loved making people laugh. And I think that's a good character trait to have and to bring through. And he can talk to anyone, and I'm like that. People talk to me on the bus, even on the London Tube. I talk to people.
Wow, that's
not on purpose.
Doing.
They talk to me. I don't initiate. And if I'm with other people, they're like, "Oh my word!" And I'm like, "No, I don't initiate. This just happens." But that's good. That's a gift. And Dad inspired me to be like that. So
yeah, I think that's about energy, isn't it? People pick up on that energy. Because I lived in London for 2 years and used to studiously study the map on the tube rather than not make eye contact with anybody. But yeah, I did manage to get the entire carriage to sing Gold on a night out once when we were heading back from Leicester Square. So put that down as one of my biggest achievements.
I think that's amazing.
That's
awesome.
So are there any current inspirations who are sort of driving you forward on your journey as an author? I know you're in a writing group, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely the other people in the group. So my writing group's only a small group, I think there's like 15, 20 of us, and we all encourage each other and all basically are accountable to each other is a big thing. But definitely my writing mentor, Jude Lennon, has been a huge inspiration. She makes a living out of this. She writes books for kids, she also writes adult books, and she goes into schools and does storytelling and teaches kids to write. She's amazing. And she's been with me since step one, writing my book, and being critical in the right way, as in not critical, just showing, you know, kind of constructive criticism. Yeah. She's amazing. But she has such a humility and gentleness about her. So when she can basically say anything to you and you take it the right way, because you can see her heart. She's amazing. She really is an inspiration. And she used to be a teacher, so she is good at teaching anyway. But how she teaches writing and how she teaches publishing, all of this independent publishing stuff is amazing. She's a proper inspiration.
Yeah, I think it's funny because we've had quite parallel journeys in the past few years in terms of both finding our passion now and but also finding our tribe. And I think finding your tribe when you're doing anything that's a bit daunting, I think is really important, isn't it?
Definitely. Because I know when you go and do comedy, there's a group of you who go and you know the support team, and the writings like that. There's people who came to my book launch, my first book, and I know they'll be there for the second book, and they keep you going when you're having days where you think, what on earth am I doing? I've lost the plot. They're there and they've got your back, and it's a huge thing. It really is.
I think you really need, as a creative, and perhaps people come into their passion later in life, the imposter syndrome is really loud some days, isn't it? And you're like, I'm not a writer, I'm not a comedian, what on earth am I doing this for? So you do need those people to sort of almost give you a slap around the chops and say, you are a writer, you are a comedian, you have a published book, you know, you've got your memoir ready to go. You just need someone who understands the sort of how, not painful, but how arduous that creative process can be sometimes, because not everybody gets that, I don't think, if they've not done it.
No, because the number of people, as I've been writing my book, like, is it done yet? And I'm like, oh my word, this is like blood, sweat and passion. You can't just write it in, like, it's not like writing a shopping list.
Yeah, not just
it's
knocking
like,
out a dissertation.
But yeah, it's quite funny. And because it's personal as well, it's took a long time, because you're having to work through things and thinking, is that too much information to put in? Is that enough? And so yeah, there's a lot to it, but as you say, having those people around you who've been there, done that, and are still going through it, it's a huge help. It really is.
Yeah, it's from what I've read, it's obviously you've been very vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's not easy. So you've got to tread carefully when you do something like that.
Definitely.
So with that in mind, obviously, how do you think you'll be able to inspire others with your story when you do get out on the road with it?
Definitely to know there's always a different path. There's always, if you're in a place where you're not happy or you think there's another way, whether that's because of control or because you've never been or felt brave enough to step out of your comfort zone, my story is just to go, listen, you can, anything's possible. There is no limitation. The only limitation is you, but if you want to do it, get the right people around you, and you'll be fine. You'll always find a new tribe. When I left all my friends, I thought, this is it, I'm going to be friendless. I now have lots of different friends in lots of different tribes, actually. And that's been very healing. It's been very healing to have different friends, and different friends of different ages. One of my best friends is my niece, who's 11, who is one of the wisest people in the universe. Another one of my best friends is 78 and is my husband's auntie. And I've got lots of amazing friends in between. And there's people I wouldn't have met or I wouldn't have known if I had have stayed in the church. And I've met such an amazing bunch of people from leaving. So yeah, my hope is people think, gosh, if she can do it, anyone can do it. And if she can learn to trust herself, then I can learn to trust myself.
Yeah. So is the plan to take it out on the road and do a book tour with Q&A sessions so that people can ask you that? Yeah,
I'd love to. It's on the vision board.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely love that. This isn't a time I love talking about myself. I love talking about that anyone can do it. It's not just, you don't have to be a special person. I'm not saying that I'm not special. Obviously all of us are in our own different ways. But sometimes people think just because you can do it doesn't mean doesn't mean they can do it. And I think there's something about doing it in person and meeting people in real life and realising that they are flawed and normal and they're not that scary. So I go to loads of author talks and you read their books and you're like, oh my word, they're amazing. And you meet them and they have imposter syndrome. And I remember going up to, I'm not going to say who it was, a very well-known author. I said, oh my word, I love all your books. And she said, oh, do you really? And she cried because I said I loved her books. And I'm like, her books, by the way, are dramatised for television as well. Right. She's huge. And we had like a proper moment as she's signing one of my books. And I was like, oh my word, if she can have that imposter syndrome and still be a best-selling author and still, you know, have television programmes and still have imposter syndrome and encourage me, I was like, I can do this. So that's my hope, that I do the same with other people.
Yeah, well, I think, that's the aim of this podcast really, is to tell, I'm going to put in inverted commas, ordinary people's lives. What I mean is, I'm very conscious, there's so much wellness content, particularly on Instagram. And, you know, it's people in LA living in the sunshine, no kids, you know, and it's very easy to be mindful and meditate and be creative when you haven't got all those extra pressures. So I always find a lot more help and solace in real people's stories,
Definitely.
people who've lived it. And because healing it's a tough and it's a dirty process, and it's not linear, and you'll have good days and bad days. And if you've got those memories to call upon, so, you know, you're sat at your computer, you might have writer's block. I don't know if you get writer's block.
Sometimes.
Do you? What have you got any techniques for getting out of it, or do you just come back to it when you feel?
Technique is do something completely different. Right. Go for a walk, come back and write about something silly. We do free writing, so you write whatever's in your head. No one else can ever read it. It's not a good thing to read, but it just gets you, it's like a warm-up before running. It gets your brain moving and gets you writing, and I handwrite that and then go back to my laptop, and it does work.
Yeah, well, that's good technique, because I was, I'd heard about something called productive procrastination the other day.
Okay.
So obviously there's procrastination where you're literally just like sorting out your sock drawer to avoid doing anything, but actually, say you go for a walk, if you're stuck. I did it the other day actually because I'm trying to write something, and I went for a walk with the dog and it all kind of just downloaded naturally, and then I could go back, but I could have sat there for 2 hours, you know, frustrated.
Yes.
But I think, that is that change of atmosphere, even getting up and dancing to a song.
Do something different, definitely.
Yeah.
And it does work. And there's something about taking your mind off it, because I find if I'm stuck on something, I get ideas when I'm asleep. And I wake up, it's quite annoying. I wake up and I scribble it down. I used to record it on voice notes, but I kept waking my husband up and he got quite freaked out because there's a whispering voice in the night, in the dark. And apparently that's quite scary. Who knew? But I find your subconscious process, so as you're saying with the walk, your brain's still processing what you've been trying to write. But because you're not focusing on it and you're focusing on something else, it clears away. The space.
I find the shower to be my most profound.
Yes, yeah.
I need some sort of, I don't know if you can buy them, like a whiteboard for the shower.
You can get waterproof. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, because I was thinking of getting one. I'll send you the link.
Yeah. Because I think it's something like, it's almost like a free flow state, isn't it? That flow state that you can't really put yourself in it, I don't think, by choice. It just comes when it's ready, doesn't it? But there's something about the shower that, I'm like, oh my god, go write that down. Because I'm similar. I've got random notes everywhere. Obviously, I always carry a notebook for the comedy, but I've got in my notes in my phone, I've just got like, I looked at it yesterday, if chickens played the piano. Why have I written that down? I don't know. There was obviously something funny in it at the time. Obviously, I'll have to work on it. But so I think if anyone went through our respective notes and voice notes on our phone, we might get carted off somewhere.
Yeah, they'd be terrified.
Yeah.
Definitely. And internet search history.
Oh.
As a writer, oh dear.
Oh right,
Oh,
Did
dear.
your am I allowed to say what you're planning for your next book?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
I'm going to be writing a crime book for my next book, and I've started doing a bit of research, and I'm looking at researching ways of killing someone that aren't obvious, and you're like, oh dear. So yeah,
and ways to dispose of a body.
Yeah,
things
oh,
like
no,
that.
I've done all that.
We've done all that.
It's terrible. Different poisons, and all the books I'm buying from Amazon, I've got a pile of them, and it's like A to Z of poison, and you're like, oh my word.
You are definitely on a government watch list.
Definitely.
Somewhere, aren't you?
It's not good. Forensics, I've got loads of forensics books because again, it's knowing what shows up in forensic testing.
Wow. So
Sounds
you really have to get into the detail of that
yeah.
then for it to be believable, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. The cunning plan is that it feels believable.
Yeah.
So yeah. But no, internet search history and Amazon shopping history / other bookshops. Yeah, not good.
Great.